I woke up in a silk bed that smelled like roses and rainstorms, and a mansion I had never stepped inside before. A woman with platinum hair leaned over me and whispered, "Now you belong to us, Zoe." She slid a wedding ring onto my finger before I could speak. The pain on my wrist burned like fire, and when I looked down I saw it, a blackened symbol etched into my skin. The woman smiled like my confusion was an inconvenience. "My name is Lady Seraphine Dravenmore," she said. "Welcome home, child." But I had never seen her, or this room, or the man standing behind her claiming to be my husband. "My name is Zoe Ravenshade. I am 23 years old, and I have no memory of marrying the man staring at me with unreadable eyes. His name, he said, was Lamine Dravenmore. They spoke like we'd had a long love story, but none of it lived in my mind. Only the burning on my wrist did, and the feeling that I was not safe. The room was massive, with tall windows draped in burgundy curtains. Everything smelled expensive, polished wood, imported candles, fresh flowers arranged in crystal vases. It was the kind of place that should feel like a dream. Instead, it felt like a trap. Lamine stood by the door watching me with dark eyes that held something I couldn't name. Not quite angry, not quite a pity, something worse, resignation. Lady Seraphine brushed a strand of hair from my face, her touch cold despite her smile. "You've been through so much, dear," she said. "Rest now, tomorrow we begin your preparations." Preparations for what? I wanted to scream. But my throat felt tight, my voice lost somewhere in the fog of my mind. When I tried to touch the symbol burned on my wrist, Lady Seraphine snapped her fingers. A black bracelet was clasped around it. Smooth, heavy, locked, and Lamine murmured quietly, "Don't try to remove it. Mother hates that." Mother, not my mother. Hi, and the way she looked at me, like she was evaluating a piece of livestock, told me exactly how she saw me. The bracelet felt alive against my skin, warm and pulsing faintly. I pulled at it, twisted it, tried to slide it off. Nothing worked. It was seamless, as if it had been forged directly onto my wrist. Seraphine watched my attempts with amusement, her lips curling into a satisfied smile. "That bracelet is for your protection," she said sweetly. "The mark needs time to settle. Without the bracelet, the pain would be unbearable." I didn't believe her. Nothing about this felt protective. It felt like ownership. Like they had branded me the way farmers brand cattle, marking me as property. I looked at Lamine, hoping for some explanation, some reassurance. But he avoided my eyes, his jaw tight, his hands clenched at his sides. "Get some rest," he said finally, his voice flat. "Tomorrow will be difficult." Lamine's younger sister, Aeris, was the first to warn me. She dragged me into a hallway when Seraphine wasn't watching and whispered, "Don't ask about the symbol. Don't ask about the wedding. And never be alone with Mother." I asked her why. She looked over her shoulder, terrified. Then she said something that sent a chill through my bones. "Because you're not the first bride who woke up here." Aeris was small, with dark curls and wide eyes that reminded me of a frightened deer. She couldn't have been older than 19. Her hands trembled as she gripped my arm, her nails digging into my skin. "How many others?" I whispered. She shook her head. "I don't know, they don't let me see them. But I hear things late at night, screaming, crying, and then silence." My stomach twisted. "What happened to them?" Aeris's eyes filled with tears. "I don't know, they just disappear. One day they're here and the next it's like they never existed. Kale never talks about it, Mother forbids it." Before I could ask more, footsteps echoed down the hall. Aeris's face went pale. She released my arm and stepped back, her expression smoothing into careful neutrality. A guard rounded the corner, nodded at us, and continued past. But the warning in Aeris's eyes remained clear: trust no one. They forced me to meet the estate physician, Eldrick Voss. He insisted I had temporary memory fog. He insisted I had married Lamine willingly. He insisted everything was normal. But when Seraphine left the room, Eldrick leaned close and hissed, "Stop asking questions, you won't like the answers." Eldrick was a thin man with grey hair and sharp features. He wore a white coat that looked too clean, too pristine, as if it had never been stained by the messy reality of medicine. His examination was clinical, cold. He checked my pulse, looked into my eyes, and tested my reflexes. All the while he spoke in a monotone, reciting diagnoses that felt rehearsed. "Memory loss is common after trauma," he said, scribbling notes on a clipboard. "Your brain is protecting you from overwhelming experiences. In time, the memories will return." I wanted to believe him, but something in his tone felt off, like he was reading from a script. When Seraphine excused herself to take a phone call, Eldrick's demeanor changed instantly. He set down his clipboard and leaned close, his breath smelling of mint and something bitter. "Listen carefully," he whispered. "I'm telling you this once. Stop asking about your past, stop trying to leave, stop questioning the family. You're deeper than you know, and the more you resist, the worse it will get." "What do you mean?" I asked, my voice shaking. He straightened, his professional mask sliding back into place. "I mean nothing, just a doctor's advice." That night when I tried to leave my room, the door wouldn't open. From the outside I heard a metal slide. "Someone is locking it." Eris whispered through the keyhole, "I'm sorry, Zoe." Sorry for what? I didn't have time to ask, because footsteps approached. Heavy ones, and the lock clicked again. I pressed my ear to the door, listening. The footsteps stopped just outside. I heard breathing, slow, deliberate, as if whoever it was knew I was listening. My heart pounded so hard I thought it would burst. "Go to sleep, Zoe," a voice said, male, deep, not Lamon, someone else. "Tomorrow is an important day." I backed away from the door, my hands shaking. The room suddenly felt smaller, the walls closing in. I searched for another exit, a window, a vent, anything. But the windows were sealed shut, reinforced with iron bars hidden behind decorative curtains. This wasn't a bedroom, it was a cell. I sat on the edge of the bed, trying to slow my breathing. Think, Zoe, think, there had to be a way out. But every option felt blocked, every path guarded. I was trapped in a mansion I didn't know, married to a man I didn't remember, marked with a symbol I didn't understand. And somewhere in this house, other women had been where I was now, and they had disappeared. Lamine entered carrying a tray of food. His voice was calm, gentle, too gentle. "Eat," he said, "you fainted earlier." But the moment he turned, I saw it, the same symbol as mine etched faintly into the back of his neck. I gasped. He froze, then his voice dropped lower. "Don't tell my mother you saw that." The symbol on Lamine's neck was smaller than mine, almost hidden beneath his collar. But it was unmistakable. The same intricate design, the same dark color. My mind raced. If he had the mark too, did that mean he was also trapped, or was he complicit? "Why do you have it?" I asked, my voice barely above a whisper. Lamine set the tray down slowly, his movements careful, controlled. He didn't look at me. "It's complicated." "Try me." He finally met my eyes, and for the first time I saw something raw in his expression. "Pain, regret, fear. The mark is a family tradition," he said. "Every Dravenmore bears it, it binds us to the bloodline, to the Concord. We don't have a choice." "What's the Concord?" He flinched at the word. "An organization, ancient, powerful, they control everything, politics, money, influence. My family has served them for generations, and now," he trailed off, looking at the floor, "now you're part of it too." I felt sick, I didn't agree to this. "I know," his voice was hollow, "none of us did." A corridor in the mansion was sealed with iron gates. 2 guards stood on each side. Eris stopped me from walking toward it. "Don't," she whispered. "That's where they keep the truth." The truth about what? Eris wouldn't say another word. The forbidden wing was located in the east side of the mansion, far from the main living areas. Every time I passed near it, I felt a pull, as if something inside was calling to me. The guards never moved, never spoke. They stood like statues, their faces hidden behind dark helmets, their hands resting on weapons I couldn't identify. One afternoon I tried to approach. I walked slowly, casually, pretending I was just exploring. But the moment I got within 10 feet of the gate, both guards stepped forward in perfect unison. One raised a hand, palm out, a warning. "This area is restricted," he said, his voice mechanical. "Why?" I asked, trying to sound innocent. "What's back there?" The guard didn't answer. He just stared at me through the dark visor of his helmet, unblinking. The silence stretched until Eris appeared, grabbing my arm and pulling me away. "Are you insane?" she hissed once we were out of earshot. "They'll report you to Mother. You can't go near that wing, ever." "Why, what's in there?" Eris's eyes filled with tears, the ones who didn't survive. That night I dreamed of a metal door underground, a door with the same symbol on my wrist. When I woke up trembling, the mark on my wrist was glowing faintly. Lamine rushed into the room. He looked afraid, not for me, of me. The glow was soft at first, like a nightlight under my skin. But as I stared at it, it grew brighter, pulsing in rhythm with my heartbeat. I tried to cover it with my hand, but the light seeped through my fingers. Panic surged through me. What was happening? Lamine burst through the door without knocking. He took one look at my wrist and went pale. How long has it been glowing? He demanded. I don't know just now. What is this? He grabbed my arm, examining the mark closely. His hands were shaking. This shouldn't be happening yet, it's too soon. Too soon for what? He didn't answer. Instead, he pulled out his phone and made a call. We have a problem, he said to the receiver. Her mark is active. Active? What did that mean? Within minutes, Eldrick arrived, carrying a black medical bag. He injected something into my arm without asking permission. The glow faded slowly, the light dimming until it disappeared completely. But I could still feel it, a warmth beneath my skin, a presence that hadn't been there before. What did you do to me? I asked, my voice weak. Eldrick packed his bag without meeting my eyes, delayed the inevitable. A maid named Mile Tosh followed me silently everywhere. When I asked if she could help me escape, she shook her head violently and signed with her hands. They listen, always. Then she slipped a note into my pocket. You weren't the first. Mile was small and wiry, with sharp eyes that missed nothing. She moved through the mansion like a ghost, always present but never speaking. I learned she was mute, whether by birth or by force I didn't know, but her silence felt deliberate, protective, as if speaking would cost her something she couldn't afford to lose. The note she gave me was written on a scrap of paper, the handwriting shaky. Trust no one, not even him. Him, Lamin, or someone else. I found Mile in the laundry room later that day. I held up the note and mouthed, who wrote this? She pointed to herself. Why should I trust you? She pulled up her sleeve. There on her wrist was a faint scar, the same shape as my mark but healed over, barely visible. She had been branded too, and somehow she survived. During dinner, Seraphine announced that my integration into the family would begin soon. When I asked what that meant, she said a single word, the Concord. Everyone at the table stiffened, except Lamin. Lamin looked at me with regret, deep, bone-deep regret. The dining room was enormous, with a table that could seat 20 people. But tonight only 5 of us were present. Seraphine at the head, Lamin to her right, Aeris to her left, Eldrick across from me, and me at the far end, as if I were the least important person in the room. Seraphine cut her steak with precise, elegant movements. The Concord is the heart of our family's legacy, she said. It is an honor to be chosen. You should feel grateful. Grateful for what? I asked. I don't even know what it is. Her smile was sharp. You will learn in time. I want to know now. The room went silent. Seraphine set down her knife and fork, dabbing her mouth with a napkin. When she looked at me, her eyes were cold. You will know when I decide you're ready, not before. Lamin shifted in his seat. Mother, maybe we should. Silence, her voice cut like a blade. Lamin's mouth snapped shut. I realized then that even he was afraid of her. I managed to steal a key from a guard's belt. Late at night, I sprinted down the corridor toward the exit. I was inches from freedom when Dagon Ward, the head of security, stepped out of the shadows. You're fast, he said, but not fast enough. Dagon was a mountain of a man with scarred knuckles and a face that looked like it had been carved from stone. He didn't grab me. He didn't need to. He just stood there, blocking my path, arms crossed, expression unreadable. Where do you think you're going? He asked calmly. Out, I said, breathless. I'm leaving. No, you're not. I tried to dart around him, but he moved with surprising speed, catching my arm in a grip that didn't hurt but was impossible to break. He plucked the key from my hand and examined it. Clever, he said, but pointless. There are 30 guards on this estate. Cameras in every hall, motion sensors on every door. You wouldn't make it past the gate. I have to try. His expression softened just slightly. I understand, but running will only make things worse for you, trust me. Why should I trust you? He leaned close, his voice dropping to a whisper. Because I'm the only one here who doesn't want to see you end up like the others. Aeris secretly brought me a flash drive. Watch this alone, she said. In my locked room I opened it. A wedding video played. Me, Lamin, vows, rings, smiles. Except my eyes in the video were empty, unfocused, almost drugged. And Lamin, he wasn't smiling, he looked trapped. The video was professionally shot, with multiple angles and soft lighting. It looked like any other wedding video, beautiful, romantic, perfect. But the longer I watched, the more wrong it felt. My voice in the video was slow, slurred. I repeated the vows like I was reading from a script I didn't understand. My movements were stiff, robotic, And my eyes, God, my eyes were completely vacant. I looked like a puppet being controlled by invisible strings. Lamine, on the other hand, looked miserable. He said his vows clearly, but his jaw was tight, his hands clenched. When the officiant said, "You may kiss the bride," he hesitated. For a long, painful moment, he just stared at me. Then he leaned in and kissed me quickly, almost clinically, before stepping back. The video ended with applause. Seraphine stood in the front row, beaming, and behind her I saw them, rows of people in dark suits, all wearing the same pin on their lapels. A pin shaped like the symbol on my wrist. "The Concorde." I demanded answers. Lamine broke. "Mother chose you," he said. "You're not my first wife. The others couldn't survive Concorde's ritual, but you have something they need." I asked what that something was. He whispered, "Your blood." "My blood," I repeated, disbelieving. "What does that even mean?" Lamine paced the room, running his hands through his hair. He looked like a man on the edge of breaking. "The Concorde believes in bloodlines, old bloodlines. They think certain families carry traits, abilities, power. Your family is one of them." "I don't have any family," I said. "I grew up in foster care." "That's what they wanted you to think." He stopped packing and looked at me. "Your real family was wiped out years ago. The Concorde did it. They took everything from you, your name, your history, your identity, and then they waited for you to grow up, waited for the right time to bring you into the fold." I felt like the floor was falling out from under me. "Why me?" "Because your bloodline is rare, pure, and when combined with ours," he trailed off, unable to finish. "Combined how?" He closed his eyes. "Through the ritual, through the mark, through conception." The room spun. I gripped the edge of the bed to steady myself. "You mean?" "Yes," his voice was hollow. "They want you to have a child that carries both bloodlines, a child they can control." Seraphine discovered we spoke. She dragged me into her private study. "These marks bind you to us," she said. "It's ancient, sacred, your blood strengthens our bloodline." I said I wanted to leave. She smiled cruelly. "You will never leave, not alive." Her study was lined with books, old, leather-bound volumes with titles in languages I didn't recognize. On the walls hung portraits of stern-faced men and women, all bearing the same mark. The Dravenmore lineage, stretching back centuries. Seraphine poured herself a glass of wine and sat behind a massive oak desk. She didn't offer me a seat. She wanted me to stand, to feel small, powerless. "Do you know how long we've been searching for you?" she asked casually, swirling the wine in her glass. 15 years. We tracked your bloodline through 3 countries, 5 foster homes and a dozen false leads, and when we finally found you," she smiled. "It was like finding the last piece of a puzzle." "I'm not a puzzle piece," I said. "I'm a person." "Are you?" She tilted her head. "Or are you just a vessel, a means to an end?" I wanted to scream. I wanted to lunge across the desk and claw that smug smile off her face. But I knew it would be pointless. She had all the power here, I had none. "What happens if I refuse?" I asked. Her smile widened. "Then you die and we find someone else. There are others with your bloodline. Weaker, yes, but viable. You're just the best option." I found the door from my dreams. Hidden beneath a rug under a trapdoor, the same symbol carved into it. Inside were files, medical records, photos, women with symbols on their wrists, women who looked terrified, women who looked like me. And one final file, Zoe Ravenshade, successful candidate. The basement was cold and damp, the air thick with mold and something else, something metallic, blood maybe, or fear. The walls were lined with filing cabinets, each drawer labeled with a year. I pulled open the nearest one and found files, dozens of them. Each one contained a photo, a name, and a status report. Emily Crane failed, rejected by the host body. Sarah Donovan failed, ritual incomplete. Maya Lynn failed, deceased during bonding. Failed, over and over, at least 20 women, all marked, all dead. And then, at the very bottom of the drawer, I found mine. Zoe Ravenshade, successful candidate. Mark accepted, bonding in progress. I dropped the file, my hands shaking. This wasn't just about marriage. This wasn't just about bloodlines. This was systematic. Calculated. They had been doing this for years, sacrificing women one after another until they found one who could survive. And that one was me. Mile found me crying. She took my hands, trembling, and signed something new. "I was once where you are." She pulled back her sleeve. The faint outline of a burned symbol scarred her wrist. She had escaped barely. Miles' story came out slowly in fragments. She couldn't speak, but she could write, and what she wrote chilled me to the bone. She had been chosen 5 years ago, marked, married to a different Dravenmore son, one who had died in an accident shortly after the ritual. The Concord had deemed her incompatible and decided to dispose of her, but she had overheard their plans and ran. She had lived in hiding for months, moving from town to town, always looking over her shoulder, until Dagon Ward found her. But instead of turning her in, he had offered her a deal: come back to the estate, work as a servant and stay silent. In exchange, he would protect her. "Why did you come back?" I wrote on a scrap of paper. She wrote back to help the next one. Me. Maury memories returned in flashes. Candles, chanting, cold hands holding me down, a blade, and Lamin shouting, "Stop, you'll kill her." Seraphine's voice, "She'll live, she always does." The memories came in the middle of the night, sharp and vivid. I saw myself lying on a stone altar, surrounded by hooded figures. I felt the cold bite of metal against my skin. I heard the chanting, low, rhythmic, in a language I didn't know but somehow understood. And I remembered pain. Searing, unbearable pain as the mark was burned into my wrist. I screamed until my voice gave out. I fought until strong hands pinned me down. And through it all I heard Lamin's voice, desperate and broken, begging them to stop. But they didn't stop, they never stopped, not until the ritual was complete. Lamin barged into my room at dawn. "Pack your things," he whispered. "I'm getting you out." I asked him why he'd risk everything. His voice cracked. "Because the moment Mother chose you, I knew she chose the one person I actually care about." Lamin had a plan, a risky, half-formed plan, but a plan nonetheless. He had been secretly working with Dagon, mapping out the guard rotations, finding blind spots in the security system. He had a car waiting at the north gate, keys hidden in the garden shed. "We have a 2-hour window," he said, packing my room. "That's it, 2 hours before they realize you're gone." "And then what?" I asked. "They'll come after us." "I know, but we'll be long gone by then. I have contacts, people who owe me favors. We can disappear." I wanted to believe him, but something in his eyes told me he didn't believe it himself. This was a suicide mission and he knew it, but he was willing to try anyway. "For me." As we fled the mansion, Lamin explained. "The Dravenmore family believed my bloodline carried a dormant genetic trait, something Seraphine wanted to merge into hers to secure power within the Concord. I wasn't a wife, I was a vessel." We ran through the gardens, staying low, moving fast. Lamin held my hand tightly, pulling me along when I stumbled. The night air was cold, biting against my skin. Behind us, the mansion loomed like a dark fortress, silent and menacing. "The Concord isn't just about power," Lamin said, breathless. "It's about evolution. They believe they can create a new kind of human, stronger, smarter, more obedient, and your bloodline is the key." "Why mine?" "Because your ancestors were resistors. They fought the Concord centuries ago. And even though they lost, their bloodline carried something the Concord wanted, something they've been trying to reclaim ever since." We reached the gate. The car was there, just as Lamin promised. He fumbled with the keys, his hands shaking. And then footsteps. Just when we reached the forest edge, Eris stepped out with guards. "I warned you," she said softly. "Mother sees everything." Lamin stood in front of me, shielding me. Eris lowered her eyes. "I'm sorry, Zoe, but you can't leave, not yet." Eris looked heartbroken. Tears streamed down her face, but she didn't move. The guards flanked her, weapons drawn. Lamin pulled me behind him, his body tense. "Eris, please," he said, "let us go." She shook her head. "I can't, she'll kill me if I do, you know that." "Then come with us," I said desperately. "You don't have to stay here, you don't have to be part of this." For a moment I saw hope flicker in her eyes, but then Seraphine's voice cut through the darkness. "Eris, bring them back, now." And the hope died. They dragged me back, strapped me to an altar. Seraphine raised a silver blade. "This time," she said, "we finish what we started." But just as the blade touched my skin, the mansion lights exploded. The explosion was massive, glass shattered, alarms blared, the entire electrical system overloaded, plunging the mansion into darkness. In the chaos, I felt the straps around my wrists loosen. Someone was cutting me free. "Go," a voice hissed, "Dagon." He pulled me off the altar and shoved me toward the door. "Run, don't look back." "What about Lamin?" "He's fine now, Gio." I ran, through smoke and fire, through collapsing hallways, through screaming guards. And somewhere in the darkness I heard Seraphine's voice, shrill and furious. Find her. Mile led a group of former victims back into the mansion. They stormed the ritual hall. Lamine fought off Dagon. Aeris turned against her own mother. Eldrick destroyed the ritual tools. The Concord was collapsing. The survivors came like an army. Women who had been marked, tortured, discarded. Women who had escaped and spent years in hiding, waiting for this moment. Mile led them, silent and fierce, a blade in her hand. They tore through the guards. They destroyed the Concord's records. They set fire to the forbidden wing, burning away decades of secrets. And in the center of it all, Aeris stood face to face with Seraphine. You don't own me anymore, Aeris said, her voice shaking but firm. Seraphine laughed. Foolish girl, you'll always be mine. But Aeris didn't flinch. She raised a gun, Dagon's gun, and aimed it at her mother's heart. Not anymore. In the chaos, the ritual fire caught the curtains. Flames rose everywhere. Seraphine lunged for me, but Lamine pulled me away. The floor collapsed beneath her. The fire swallowed her. And the mansion that once trapped me became her grave. Seraphine's scream echoed through the collapsing hall. I watched as the floor gave way, as the flames consumed everything, as the woman who had tried to control me disappeared into the inferno. Lamine held me tight, shielding me from the heat. Around us the mansion crumbled. The walls collapsed, ceilings caved in. The Dravenmore legacy was burning. And I felt nothing but relief. Weeks later, Lamine and Aeris dismantled the Concord permanently. Mile and the survivors were finally free. And me, I stood outside the ruins of the Dravenmore estate, touching the faint scar on my wrist. The Concord's files were leaked to the press. Arrests were made. Politicians resigned. Corporations collapsed. The network that had controlled so much for so long was finally exposed. Lamine and Aeris worked tirelessly, testifying, providing evidence and helping investigators piece together decades of crimes. And Mile, she found her voice again, not literally but through her story. She wrote a book. She gave interviews. She became a symbol of survival. As for me, I was still healing. The mark on my wrist had faded to a pale scar, barely visible. But I could still feel it sometimes, a phantom pain that reminded me of everything I had survived. My name, I whispered, is Zoe Ravenshade, not theirs, never theirs again. I stood at the edge of the ruins, watching the sun rise over the ashes. The estate was gone, the family was gone, the Concord was gone, but I was still here. I had survived. And more than that, I had reclaimed myself. They had tried to brand me, to own me, to turn me into something I wasn't. But in the end, the only thing that mattered was the truth I carried inside. I was not defined by what they did to me. I was defined by what I did next. And what I did next was walk away. Free. If you're listening to my story, remember this. No matter who tries to claim you. No matter what they brand you with, no matter how broken you wake up, your identity is still yours. You are not owned, you are not defined by what hurt you, and you are not trapped forever. People can cage your body, but they can never cage your will to rise. If you feel lost, confused, or controlled, hold on. One day you'll look back and realize the fire didn't burn you, it forged you. They said I belonged to them, but belonging is something you give, not something they take. A scar is not a shame, it's a signature of survival. You are not the mark they burned into you, you are the fire that refused to go out. If this story moved you, tell me where you're watching from. Subscribe and share this with someone who needs to hear it. And remember, no one owns you but yourself.